Hello, I'm Jim Middleton, and welcome to Flying by the Seat of My Paints. This is an entrepreneur or entrepreneur podcast designed for the artist who, like many of us, want to translate their passion to paycheck. The tips and tricks myself and upcoming guests have learned along the way are what we want to share to get you that one step closer to making this your full-time gig. We're going to be covering topics like how to promote, how to price, how to dive into social media, how to show your art, how to become a better artist yourself. For our fourth episode, I wanted to explore something on the forefront of our minds. How do we make a living from our art? So I'm going to start opening these podcasts with What's Flying This Week segment. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what's going on in my life, and if you're, what I'm up to art-wise. If you're interested in that, feel free to stick around. If you want to just jump to the topic of the day, I do put in a skip point, so you can go to that immediately. If you are listening to this on any of our podcast platforms, it will be in the description. If you are watching this on YouTube, it will be in the description in the YouTube section. So you can find that point if you want to jump to it, feel free. If not, let's dive in. So this week has eased up a bit. I live on coffee, so you know that. So don't mind if I slurp or sip as we go along. We're very informal here at Flying by the Seat of My Paints. I've actually been able to spend some time on my art. Not as much as I would like, but I feel like I've had so many weeks of having felt like I'm looking at a giant painting right now that needs to get done, that's supposed to be dropped off. I've got to finish. And like a lot of us, I feel like I'm pulled in a million directions at a time. So one of two things can happen. I either scramble to try to finish things that have hard deadlines and feel so or I feel so overwhelmed that I can shut down and I sidetrack to other things. It's an ever repeating cycle for me. And I've talked about it before on the podcast. Motivation does not lead to action. Action leads to motivation. So you have to make a routine. You have to do something every day. You have to kind of build that in place. You just get, like I said, you get sidelined. There's a million distractions everywhere. I have to come to a different place. So this week, I found something that actually has helped a little bit. It hasn't solved everything, and nothing solved overnight. But I started bullet journaling. So I've always had notes. I've always had a journal that I've kind of kept track of ideas, and I get ideas for art projects all the time, new things that I want to make. But I scrambled onto bullet journaling, which I believe it's in my notes here, but I think it's Ryder Carroll who first came up with the concept a couple of years ago. There are all kinds of apps to organize yourself. I'm sure there are apps that bullet journal, but this is as cheap as picking up an empty book at the dollar store or wherever you have a chance, or you may even have one in your house that you're not using. And it allows you to, in a really kind of unique way, plan out your month, the next 6 months, this week, your day, moving tasks around to priorities, what you need to get done first. It's interesting. I felt like it's made a difference in the short term. Basically, a very simple way to track all your tasks that need to be done. It keeps you from losing any of them, organizing them by importance, checking them off. If I've learned anything about my own personal sanity and happiness, it genuinely stems from getting things done that I want to do. It takes pressure off. I know that there's I have not studied all the ideas and teachings and stuff in Buddhism, but I do know that having unfinished things are something that, is directly tied to your dissatisfaction, because you've got these things you want to get done, and desire is one of those things that causes pain. So being able to get those things checked off, even seeing the important ones getting moved around at the front of the list, so you make sure that you finish them. And it is Ryder Carroll who came up with the process in 2015. feel free to dive in on YouTube or Google or wherever you want to go to. There's lots of different variants. He, on his own channel, gives you the most simple form of how it's built out. But it did allow me this week to get 8 pressing tasks off my list and keep the most important ones at the forefront that I needed to do next. I still had moments this week wasted on typical distractions, but I feel like it kept me more on point than I had in quite some time. I'll continue to use it and see how it goes. Part of creating my bullet journal also had me list out all of my creative projects that were on my radar. Haven't started, which was cool. Also made me realize some of them I wanted to keep secret until they were done, which I don't know if that makes a lot of sense upon reflection. I had an idea I hadn't seen anyone else do, and I'm excited about it. And for the first time ever, I'm hesitant to share as I'm worried someone else might do it before me, which is a weird feeling. I mean, why does it matter if someone else takes my idea and run with it? I mean, normally that's kind of my whole philosophy. We all get better by sharing. There's nothing wholly original under the sun. We're all just coming up with ideas that are built upon somebody else's idea, that's built upon another idea. I need to have some of them done this week and start sharing. I also want to block in time every day for art education. I have a backlog of books I want to read, as well as getting time in my sketchbook daily. Things to do. Things to do. I've really gotten away from my art a day journey that really started this whole thing. Go back and listen to the first podcast if you're kind of curious as to how I started. But basically, I wasted most of my life with my artwork, leaving it as a hobby, as a little side distraction. When I happened to find painting, it kind of opened a floodgate, and it was something I didn't know how to do, and I really wanted to learn. It's funny because I went from thinking I really knew art inside out to understanding that I didn't know crap, and there's tons more to learn. So when I started, it started with 100 paintings in 100 days. That led to Art a Day for a year. And it got me on this journey of daily creation, which really opened the floodgates to everything. It opened up patrons who were interested in my work. It opened up just finding, my tribe who likes my work, and helped me start to think about, what does my work look like? What kind of style of art speaks to me? How do I want to develop that? Where do I want to grow? All of those questions came out of creating art daily. So getting away from that journey over the last, between, the pandemic really kind of drug a lot out of me. Then just getting back into it again, and I got laid off, and then we started doing the market, and and your life's going to be no different. You're always going to have things that pull you in a million directions and take you off where you want to be, where you want to start. So trying to remember what your North Star is, what's important to you, where do you want to go, what are you trying to create? Keeping that in mind a lot is going to help you going forward. It's going to help you when you veer off the path. Remember where the path is. What is your destination? Where do you want to go? What are you trying to do? And I think that Art a Day journey is something that's very important and core in beliefs to me, and it's something that I need to get back to. And even if it's something small, even if it's something in my sketchbook, I want to do 100 heads in 100 days, 100 hands in 100 days. Actually, that would be pretty good. A head, a hand. What else are we going to do? What else? Feet. I think those are all the tricky things, right? People don't like drawing heads, hands, and feet. Being able to do it all out of your head. I mean, using a reference is cool, but understanding anatomy and being able to make what you want. I have all these visions for paintings that I want to finish, and the photos don't exist. I mean, I can go out and take reference shots and composite and Photoshop things together, but I really want to be able to build from the ground up out of my head. And it's interesting when I think about some of my favorite painters who, some did it that way and some absolutely didn't. Some absolutely set up models. Da Vinci actually used a pane of glass and traced what he wanted to draw onto the pane of glass, and then use the pane of glass to cast a shadow onto his canvas. Like a really crazy early form of projection in order to get what he wanted on there. Norman Rockwell, one of my favorite painters of all time, took those visions he had in his head, used family members, friends, some other models. His daughter was used a lot, and took the photos he wanted, did compositions of those photos, really old school, cutting pieces out, putting them all together, and building what he wanted. And these people are all masters. And there's no wrong way to do it. The question is, how do you want to do it? I want to be able to create something out of my head from scratch. And you'll see some of the paintings that are scrolling by. Some are directly a reference model. The girl in the forest was a reference model. This next one, Last Walk to the Wheat Fields, it's a tribute of mine to Van Gogh, which again, you're only seeing this if you're on YouTube, but some of my paintings are scrolling by. Or this one, Omen, which was based on a nightmare when I was 10. They're out of my head, right? As opposed to this one, Facing Your Light, which was a beautiful reference photo. So figuring out where you want to be able to go with your work, if you have images of things in your head, if you have ideas and you want to be able to sketch them out illustrative-wise, like thinking like a cartoonist. When I drew cartoons, I wasn't looking at a reference. It was all out of my head. So escalating that to the next level, where you can build what you want out of your head from the ground up. Those are the skill sets I want. I'm 50 years old now. And I don't want to stop learning. I don't want to stop getting better. I don't want to stop improving. And I let so many of the things distract me along the course of the day. And those are the things we have to try to make a point to get away from and reset your compass. What's your North Star? Where are you trying to go? What's your true north? Write it down. Have it up somewhere you can see it. So you bring yourself back to it when you get astray, because you're going to go off the path. You're going to Hansel and Gretel this crap. Get off where you mean to be and leave some breadcrumbs. Like, get yourself back to where you want to be again. And this is, it's a journey, guys. I don't know that there's a final destination. It's a journey. So make it a journey that you want to go on. It's not somebody else's journey. It's not somebody else's trip. It's yours. So the things we're going to be talking about here on Flying by the Seat of Your Paints, suggestions that I give, are all things to adapt to how you do your art. So it can make sense for you. So you can turn that passion into a paycheck. Then that's what we want to do. And that's kind of where my head's at this week. So let's get back to the topic of the day. How do I make a living off this? So for those who wanted to jump ahead, this is our main topic. How do I make a living from my art? Let me preface this first. I am at this time, as I said earlier, recently laid off. I'm only doing work on my art. I'm also working on the new creators market. Of course, we have in Canada, luckily, things like unemployment and CERB that exists right now that help us in between. I'm really dedicated to doing everything I can to not have to work for somebody else if I can avoid it going forward, to really build, because you can, at least then I'm in control. If I'm working for somebody else, I have no control, right? They make their decision. They'll do something balancing of books. We have a vendor who no longer has this person. Doesn't make sense to pay this much for this person, so you're done. And there's a quote that always sits with me a lot. You can fail doing what you don't love. So why not fail doing what you love? And learn from your mistakes and try again. Keep failing. Keep trying to get better. That's really where I'm at. I can't say that I guarantee that I won't ever work for somebody else. And that's okay. There's lots of good people out there to work for. But I owe it to myself to treat this like a job, put in my 8 hours a day, put in my time, or more. Generally, as of late, it's been more. But try to be smart and try to focus in the right place. So, back on topic. Prior to getting laid off, art was only around 30% of my annual income. Making the leap to 100% now is very daunting. It's something that I struggle with daily. I think there are three keys to taking your art from a hobby to a full-time income. I want to break these all down one at a time. This is just my experience. And again, from somebody who as yet is not doing it. And I think a lot of us are going to be in various stages, building towards getting there full time. One, we've talked about already, create daily. You need to build a body of work. A lot of work, if you're going to sell it, find ways to fill all those price points we talked about in the previous podcast. Pieces of artwork that are impulse, love to have right now and end up taking it even though they haven't planned on it, and aspirational pieces that might take a little bit more. But having pieces of art that fill those different price points, that's huge. So filling all those different price points, this is a skeleton on which all things are going to be built on, okay? My Create Daily started with Inktober. I think I've talked about it before. Look it up. Started by Jake Parker. It's coming up. We're late August now. It's not that far off till October 1st. You get a little more than a month. Think about it. If you've never done a daily art challenge, Inktober is a great place to start. They have prompts. If you want to follow the prompts, there'll be a word of the day that you use for whatever you're creating, kind of give you inspiration, or do whatever you like. Last year, the year before, there was one year I did all superheroes. And I actually did superheroes thinking about the prompts. So it was just something to try. The first year I did it, it was mostly all horror themed because it was Halloween for me. So I wanted to do a lot of my favorite horror movies and scenes out of horror films that I love. You can do whatever you want. It can be something super quick, something that takes you a couple hours, but it's a pen and ink sketch. And you do it daily for the month of October, and that's Inktober. And doing that got me into the habit of creating every day. Give yourself a personal challenge. It doesn't have to be a month. Make it 7 days. Do something every day. Share it. If your artwork is large and it takes multiple days or weeks or months to finish your piece, share progress pics. Share sketches for development for new ideas. Share talks about techniques, about this is how I achieve this flesh tone, or this is how I, create the unique look of whatever it is I'm making. I know I reference painting a lot or drawing a lot because it's what I do, but you still need to adapt these same principles to whatever your art is. But like I said, give yourself a daily challenge. Make sure you're sharing something every day. I'm still a little all over the place. Right now, I was ridiculously regular about this for about 2 years. The last few months, as I said, between the pandemic, the recent business with the market, I haven't shared nearly as frequently as I should or have done in the past. It's added to my bullet journal, and it's something that going forward I need to correct. So when I'm working on large projects, share progress. You're doing small, simple things, share daily, as well as other art-related things I can share at my challenge. Creating daily and sharing is a huge part of making this, making a living off your art. You have to have a body of work that people can see, can talk about, get excited about, be interested in purchasing. It's a starting point. You're basically putting fuel on the fire, right? If you try to start a fire and you've got no kindling, you've got no accelerant or gas or of any kind, no charcoal briquettes, no wood piled up, you might get a little spark, but you're not going to get a fire, and you're certainly not going to get anything that keeps you warm. I'm a big analogy guy, but the first thing you need to do is build your fire, man. You've got to have a nice solid starting point, and you get that by creating daily. Next, open multiple revenue channels. So what I mean by that, revenue channels are just different ways to make money off your art. What can I name off the top of my head? Commissions, selling original pieces, selling copies or prints of my work, making merchandise of my work, so things like t-shirts, stickers, magnets, teaching classes. This can be live and local. It can be a paint and sip. It can be virtual online. It can be recorded onto services like Gumroad or Skillshare. You make more money off those services if people watch how you do what you do than YouTube. YouTube is another way. So streaming services, Twitch, YouTube, publicly displayed artwork for sale, charity auctions. Remember, it's not only your art that you're selling, but the knowledge of your art that you're selling. I know there are many more. This is just what I could think of immediately. Multiple revenue channels are important because of sales cycles. If you don't know what a sales cycle is, it's literally the time it takes from when you make something until you sell something. Some things is quick. It's a $5 magnet. Doesn't take a lot of time for a person to think about. They either like it and want it or they don't, and they move on. Versus a $2,000 painting, yeah, you'll get the odd person that's a quick purchase, but most people are going to have to love it, think about it, consult their spouse if they're going to spend that much on a piece of art, think about where they want it in their home. It's a big deal. I have even little paintings. The whale up here, the whale with the tail I'm pointing to right now, which if you don't see it, you can, if you're listening on the pod, you can go to my website and you can see there's a whale painting called Swimming with Scars. It's also on my YouTube channel where I captured it, painted from beginning to end. It's just a small 12 by 12. It's not a hugely expensive piece, 95 bucks. Somebody reached out to me this week and they want to buy it. I've had it how long? Year and a half? Mind you, I have hundreds of paintings. So you need the right person at the right time that sees the painting that they want, that speaks to them, and they want to buy it. So by having multiple sales cycles, imagine if I just did one $50,000 painting a year and it sold. Well, that might cover all my bills. But man, what if it took a year and a half? What if it took 2? You know what I mean? If everything is tied to selling huge paintings, and there are absolutely artists that make their living that way, but they've probably built up a following starting somewhere smaller. So if you're like me, I consider myself on the path, or even if you're starting on the path, you need to figure out, if I want to make $50,000 or $60,000 a year, that's around what I was making at my old job. I've made as much as 70, made as low as 40, depending on the sales job that I've had. But I'd like to be in that ballpark, which allows me to pay my bills and look after my family, keep food on the table. How hard is it for me to hit that mark just selling big paintings versus if I have a lot of different things bringing in money? So if I have, I'll give an example. So I have my big Gord Downie, which is right up here on the wall. This is the original. This painting is not for sale. It was originally. So let's say I sold it originally, and I sold it for $800 and then it was gone. That's what I wanted for it originally. After about 3 weeks and looking at it, I decided there was something different and special about my Gord painting. If you're watching on YouTube, it's up on the screen, right? If I can point, it's all flipped here. Now, there it is, was there. There was something different and special about it, and the more that it looked at me and the more I looked at it, I decided I didn't want to let it go. So that could have just been, okay, that's a painting that sits in my collection. I don't make any money with it. But I made photographic prints. Only 100, signed and numbered. They all sold at $30 a piece. That's $3,000 in prints. And I still have my painting. I've also sold full-size canvas prints for several $100s and half-size canvas prints for like $150. So I'm making money from multiple revenue streams off that painting. I also can set up my cameras, just like I'm using now, and record my painting. Or even if you have an iPhone or an Android phone, you probably have the ability to time-lapse. So you set up your device and record whatever you're creating. Doesn't matter, sculpture, painting, watercolor, charcoal drawing, whatever. You can time-lapse record it, and you have something to share on social media. You can do it live on Twitch, so people can log in and ask you questions and find out about your process and how you make things. Somebody that's on Twitch can like your work and like the way you teach and decide to subscribe. You're making $5 a month off that person who gave you their Twitch Prime. All of these things are multiple revenue channels as opposed to just selling the painting. Right? So again, if I could take the stuff, and there's still more, it just keeps going. So I can have that recording that people ask me live stuff on Twitch, then I put it up as a time lapse to share on social media, then I turn that into courses. I take the video and break it down into courses to teach people on Gumroad or Skillshare, and anytime somebody visits those, I get paid for people going to see those. You start seeing how everything starts to snowball. You can't, you don't necessarily have to have all your money coming in from one source. If I'm trying to hit that $50,000, $60,000 number, is it easier trying to do it with one thing or to do it with 10 things? One that's bringing in a few hundred, one that's bringing in a couple thousand, one that's bringing in pennies, but it all adds up. It's all about, as you build this following and get more people interested in your work, sometimes it's people see you live painting and they want a commission. So they book you to do a painting. Yet another revenue source, and probably one of my first. When I started, all I did was I did a painting a day, and I shared that painting online on Instagram and Facebook. That was it. I didn't ask anybody if they wanted to buy work. I didn't advertise that anything was for sale. I just painted and shared every day. Around the 20th painting, about 20 days in, so it wasn't even a month, somebody asked me if I'd paint their kids. They liked my work. Would you do a commission for me? It wasn't a hugely expensive commission, but it was a start. It started the snowball of another way to sell. I had all these original paintings that were for sale, but now I had people who were coming to me to buy things for them. So you have a lot of art options, lots of revenue channels. Even if none of them on their own can support you, combined, you can start building to make a livable income. So start thinking about all the things that you can do that can start creating these revenue streams. So, and you don't try to do it all at once. One will build to another, will build to another, will build to another. There are things that I haven't even done yet that I want to do. I have all these goofy, cartoony, funny ideas for t-shirts and stickers. None of them are out there yet because I'm doing other things. Keep working on what works. Keep making what you love. Don't ignore the things that do well. I'm rolling into Christmas right now. Well, I'm saying Christmas, it's August. But September, October, November, December, those are commission months for paintings that people want stuff. So I'll be starting to advertise, hey, this is how many spots I have a month. If you want a commission painting from me, these are all the spots I have. When they're full, they're full. Like I'm probably going to do 10 a month, 10 in September. You can take them, great. If you don't, they don't roll over. It's not like I have 10 in September and 10 in October and I only sell 5 in September. It doesn't mean there's 15 in October. It means all I'm allotting myself for time is 10 a month. So if you don't take them in September, they don't roll. So get them while you can. They're going to be gone. And that's kind of where and even try different things. I tried a raffle with selling hundreds. Like I have all these huge paintings that are like $800 to $1,000 a piece. And I have a friend who does tattooing. She's great. She's actually in one of my paintings. She sold out like that with like a day or two. She had 100 squares. I think they were $15 a square, so $1,500 total for like 6 hours of tattoo work, and they'd sell it instantly. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to offer one of my big paintings worth $1,000, $10 a square, and fill those up. And it's taken a couple months, and I still have some squares that aren't full. And I've basically said, you know what? 80% of them are full. I'm going to draw no matter what, August 31st, because I want to move on. That was something I tried that for the time being was just okay. Wasn't a huge success. It worked in a sense, but I don't like people waiting that long to win. And it was a trial. Some ideas that you have for a revenue stream will work great. Raffles work great for Nikki, my friend Nikki. Sorry, Nikki, I called you. And tattoos. They didn't work that great for me. They're all right, and I'm really looking forward to see who wins, and I'm sure they're going to be excited about getting their piece. I have offered multiple paintings that they can get. But I don't know if I'll do a raffle again soon because I don't know that it worked well for me. And it might be different in a year's time when I have more followers and more people who might be up for a raffle. So, but for the time being, find what works, focus on what works. You try something that doesn't work that great, move off it for a while and try something else. Try the things, find what makes you money, and keep doing those. So, 3, market awareness. You need to raise your market awareness. Starting out, it is you in your studio with your art. Apart from family and friends, virtually zero to few people will be aware of who you are and what your artwork is and why should it even matter to them. You need to let them know you're there. I started with an art battle, which was a live painting event that opened the floodgates for me. Then I started live painting locally at outdoor events, markets, festivals. I submitted my work to charity auctions, local venues that would display my work. When opportunities arose for me to talk about my work, now not everybody's going to get this opportunity, but I did because I did something crazy. I did a painting a day for 100 days, then it turned into art a day for a year, where I also closed out the year with another 100 paintings in 100 days. Because I did that task and could quantify it all with everything that I'd shared online, I happened to have a local newscaster who saw a painting I did of the city that they liked, saw my story, was intrigued, something to fill the arts and entertainment section, and they did a story on me and it ended up on the Maritime News. And then now I have a friend who is a news reporter who, when something else pops up for art in the city, they reference back to me. And when I finish my challenge, they come back and talk to me again. Then, things come up with the market, and I'm still the artist who's helping build this market. So I don't say no to any of those opportunities that get people a chance to see me, see my work, understand what I'm all about, what I'm trying to do. Say yes to all of those because that's just going to raise your awareness. Again, getting to know artists in my market. What are they doing? How do they expose their work? Are there group art shows I can attend? Then the whole social media process. I think we'll end up doing a whole separate podcast just on social media because, man, that's a monster. It's so big just on its own. But find the platforms that make sense for your art. Instagram was everything a few years ago. It's still good. It's not the same as it was. There are other ones out there, whether you're using DeviantArt, whether you're using... isn't that horrible? I'm sitting here thinking, what are the art platforms? Because I have a bunch of them that I belong to and I share online. And I'm, clearly showing how unprepared I am by just logging in and taking a look at my phone to see... Oh, there we go. ArtStation. That's a big one that I use as well. So DeviantArt, ArtStation, Art Battle has an app that you can use stuff with. Dayflash is a new social media platform that's very similar to Instagram, but even less talking and hashtags. It's all about the images and collaborations with people. Finding social media platform, even Facebook. I'm telling you, it's weird. I get more exposure worldwide from Instagram, but I sell more because of Facebook, because people are local that are following me on Facebook. I don't have as much of an international following on Facebook. I have people nearby who know me, who share local, who saw me at the market, who reach out and ask about buying things. So a lot comes through that. So, but finding the platforms that make sense for your work, posting regularly, commenting, sharing other people's work. It increases your visibility on those platforms. You should be spending at least an hour a day on your social media platforms at minimum. So create work in a lot of it, in multiple formats. Share all the time. Seek out all the revenue channels you can find Recognize right now you're going to fumble. You're going to make mistakes. Learn from them. Make different mistakes. Learn from those. Keep moving forward. I'm going to get there. You are going to get there. And really, what else is it all about? Thanks so much for listening. If you have questions you'd like to have answers, you can click the messages link in our Anchor podcast main page, or send us an email to flyingbytheseatofmypaints@gmail.com. Yes, I know it's a ridiculously long email, and it's not going to change. If you think you have we have some good advice here on the pod, take a moment to subscribe, rate us on the platform of your choice. That helps us get shared around so more people can find us. Maybe recommend us to a fellow artist friend who's thinking about making the leap and turning this into a full-time gig, which is what we were talking about today. So until next time, this is Jim Middleton. Just keep creating.